just about ready to start. Okay, so I have to wait for it to post. Okay, just
give me 1 second, okay?
sure.
You ready?
Yep. Okay. Hi everybody, this is Steve Sabadeski, publisher of BuyUBuzz.com, and today we're going to be talking to Tyler Bridges about his new book, along with Jeremy Alford. They co-wrote the book, and it's called, the short title is Long Shot. Tyler, tell us first of all, how are you doing today? And thank you for joining us.
Great, Steve.
So why don't you tell us about the book and give us the full title?
Can I hold it up for the viewers?
Oh, absolutely, sure.
All right, let's see if I can do this right. So here's Long Shot. And are you able to read the subtitle there?
No, cannot.
A soldier, a senator, a serious sin, an epic Louisiana election. And Long Shot has two forewords, actually. One is written by James Carville, and the other is written by his wife, Mary Madeline. And the book came out a week ago, literally a week ago, and it tells the improbable story of last year's governor's race of Louisiana.
Yeah, it was just about a year ago today, just about. So actually, we have an election today. And last year was the runoff. Big difference, huh?
Yeah, well, in this year's Senate election, Foster Campbell is a very long shot. He trailed John Kennedy in the November 8th primary for the Senate race with 15%. John Kennedy had 23%. And in the primary a year ago in the governor's race, John Bel Edwards was the surprise leader of the field with 40%. And David Vitter, who had been a heavy favorite, trailed with 23%, but it's still many people at the primary in October of 2015 still thought David Vitter would win the race, and that's one of the many stories that we tell in Long Shot.
Sure. Okay. So why don't you take us through Long Shot? I read the two excerpts on Gambit. It was really good, very well written. I mean, really, I really enjoyed it. I didn't realize that it was going to cover, say, post-election. And the segment I read, did definitely cover that. So why don't you take us in terms of first, why did y'all decide to write the book?
Yeah, what happened, Steve, is that I covered the election for The Advocate last year. And right at the end of the election, when it became clear that John Bel Edwards was almost certainly going to win, I went to the editors of The Advocate and said, well, let me write a long story after the election of how John Bel Edwards pulled it off. And they agreed to that. So on the day of the election last year, November 21st, 2015, I got John Bel Edwards to agree to let me attend Mass with him at St. Louis Cathedral at 5 o'clock on Election Day. And as after the service, he agreed to be interviewed by me. And so we're literally in the church on our way out of the cathedral, and I'm interviewing him, and then we're kind of being ushered out, and we're standing out in front, and then we move over in front of the presbytere, and the state police vehicle is waiting to take him away. And at 6 o'clock, I asked him, the polls would close in 2 hours, and asked if John Bel Edwards was, if he was nervous. And he said he was, but he said, I'm not as nervous as that other guy. And then I went over to the Monteleone Hotel, so I was there when the election was called, and the brass band burst into the room at the ballroom there. And then late that night, I interviewed, at about midnight, I interviewed Kathleen and Coach Blanco in their suite in the 14th floor of the Monteleone. And then afterwards, I interviewed State Representative Sam Jones, who was the closest member of the legislature to John Bel Edwards. And then at about 3 a.m, I went out to breakfast with both of them to the trolley car stop on St. Charles Avenue, and just began to get the inside story, the story that they couldn't tell me during the campaign, but the inside story of how John Bel Edwards won that improbable race. So I ended up writing a very long story for The Advocate that was published the following Sunday. And I got such an amazing reaction from readers that really it was for the first time I began to think there was a book in there, and having written 2 books of Louisiana politics already. So I called Jeremy Alford, terrific political reporter based in Baton Rouge, and he had covered the early part of the campaign with the idea of doing a book, but wasn't sure what to do. And so we agreed to do a book together, divide up responsibilities, and for 10 months we worked very, very hard on it. And along the way, Clancy Dubose of Gambit became our editor, and so Longshot is the final result of it. Again, I'll hold up the book. This is what we finally came up with, and it tells the behind-the-scenes story of how John Bel Edwards won that race, how David Vitter lost the race. What we tried to do is we did over 100 interviews for the book. Interviewed everybody from John Bel Edwards repeatedly while he was governor, the first lady, including even the guy who headed the brass band that burst into the room on election night. I interviewed the people who were involved, and if your viewers remember the story of the Purple Party Bus and the Vitter's campaign efforts to use that. I tell the story of John Bel Edwards' personal worst moment during the campaign, the behind-the-scenes story of that, behind-the-scenes story of what was the worst moment for the campaign with less than a week before, when the Edwards campaign thought they actually may lose the election. We write the story, Steve, as an unfolding story where you know the outcome, but hopefully we tell the story in such a way that you want to turn the page to find out what happens next, because just the level of detail we hope is so strong and so entertaining. And in fact, the initial people who read the book, they said they stayed up late at night, couldn't put it down. They say that it reads like it's fiction. And Louisiana politics at times can seem stranger than fiction. And so that's the story we tell in Longshot.
Sure. Now, in terms of, so Jeremy wrote the first part, I think is what you're saying, and you wrote the second part, or did y'all?
Well, we divided up responsibilities. He wrote some of the early chapters, so did I. And in the end, we edited each other's chapters, and Clancy Dubose ended up playing a hand in the editing as well. So it's really a kind of a team effort.
Yeah, definitely.
But Jeremy had primary responsibility for writing about Scott Angel, Jay Darden. He's got a great story in there about when Jay Darden first met Edwin Edwards, when Edwin Edwards was governor in the 70s, and Jay Darden was a student at LSU. Jeremy had primary responsibility for writing about Vitter, and I had the primary responsibility for writing about John Bel Edwards and his team.
Okay, great. Thank you. Now, the 2 other books that you wrote, one was about David Duke, The Rise of David Duke, And the second one was the election between David Duke and Governor Edwards. And so those books you wrote by yourself. You authored them by yourself. This one you co-authored. So was it different in terms of writing? Obviously, you got two people rather than one, or three people in a sense.
Well, sure. When you're a single person, you have more freedom to do what you want. Maybe you make a few more mistakes in life because you don't have somebody telling you not to do something. As opposed to when you're in a relationship with somebody, you have to compromise and work together. And we had to compromise at times. There was a story in the book that got cut out that I originally very much wanted it to be in the book. It's a story of how Vincent Bruno pushed very hard. He was the guy that originally pushed the prostitution story out there in 2002, and talked about that on Jeff Crouer's radio show and also the Jim Angster radio show. That got cut from the book, unfortunately. I would like to have kept it in there, but that was something I had to agree to with my collaborators. And they had stuff in there, or Jeremy had some stuff in there that we thought didn't quite fit. That also got cut out. But the best thing is this collaboration produced a better book than if I had just done it by myself.
Yeah, that actually was a really interesting interview with, I think it was the Flaming Liberal, that story that occurred. But so moving
Yes,
on.
The Flaming Liberal is David Bellinger. Yeah, he called in and challenged David Vitter on the air. And I interviewed the Flaming Liberal about that, and unfortunately that got cut out. As a longtime journalist, I can tell you sometimes your gems have to get cut out, and in fact, the best work is when you have to cut out good stuff, because that means the rest of it is just so good that even good stuff doesn't make.
No, it definitely is a really, really terrific book. I mean, the two excerpts I read, certainly. So it actually goes into the first part of his administration. I was really surprised about that. Why did y'all decide to do that rather than just cut it off at election?
You talking about post-election?
Yeah.
Well, it's really the epilogue of the book, and it's a single chapter. It's not very long.
Oh, okay.
95% of the book is the story of the election, and ends on the night of the election. And then we thought it was a good idea just to append an epilogue to it at the end.
Okay, and one of the issues I saw was, and one of the things I had been contending for a long time after the election, was that John Bell Edwards did not know the extent of the budget deficit until December, January, and that's what you had, what the book said. A lot of people said that he lied, and I said there was no evidence that he lied. And when I read that passage that in your book, I was very pleased to see, because I don't think anybody wants to be called a liar. So in terms of the stuff that was written about David Vitter, did you have opportunities to actually? I know that Alfred actually talked to, or at least wrote much about Vitter, but did you have much opportunity to talk to David Vitter? Obviously, he's been very, very, say, difficult to talk with and talk to in terms of reporters.
Yeah, when David Vitter was a state legislator, I used to talk to him regularly. And after he became a senator, and particularly after the prostitution scandal broke in 2007, he didn't spend a lot of time talking to reporters. He ducked reporters, in fact, frequently. And during the campaign, I wrote several stories about the prostitution issue. In fact, I think I did the biggest stories on the issue. And after that, David Vitter called me a hatchet man and would not speak to me. And so when Jeremy and I started working on the book after the election, and Jeremy reached out to Senator Vitter, David would not speak to Jeremy because of me. And whereas Jeremy did get complete access from Jay Darden and Scott Angel, and I got complete access from John Bell Edwards and his team. But the fortunate thing is that Jeremy did have a good relationship with Vitter's top people. So he was able to talk to them and get the Vitter story in there. And one of the other stories that's in the book is State Representative Mike Johnson, who today will probably be elected to Congress from the Shreveport area, and how during the runoff, Mike Johnson wrote a Facebook post in favor of David Vitter. In fact, it was probably the most eloquent case made for why a conservative should vote for David Vitter. And I sat down with Mike Johnson. He told me that whole story, and that story is indeed in the book. We tried very hard to capture David Vitter's story to make Vitter's supporters they could understand why they supported. They could see why they supported him in the book, and we have that in the book. The early years of David Vitter when he was just a likable champion of issues.
Yeah, and so what was the reason? Obviously, it was anti, say, John Bell Edwards. But it was probably, I believe, anti-Vitter for the very reasons that, he wouldn't talk to Alford because of you. He had a record of doing that kind of stuff.
He and particularly on the prostitution issue, he wouldn't answer the question. He, after debates, he wouldn't talk to the media, where the other reporters would, they'd stand and talk to you as long as you wanted. And, David Vitter has not had good relations with the press in the last, let's say, decade or so.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. So, soldier, you have John Bell Edwards as a soldier. What role do you think that played? The fact that,
I think that was crucial. Louisiana is a red state. Mm-hmm. Only one Democrat holds a statewide office today, and that's because John Bell Edwards, in part because he has a military background. He's the son of sheriffs. He went to West Point. And one of the things that I do in the book, I tell stories about him growing up that have never been told before.
Oh, really?
I interviewed his mother, his brothers, his nephew. I interviewed the center of his football team. I interviewed his baseball coach, his brother, who is the closest member of the family to him. So he tells the story about John Bell growing up in a meet and the very, very difficult challenge he faced even on the first day of making it through West Point. And then the other challenge is physical and mental he faced at West Point. And then to become an Army Ranger, the physical and mental stress involved in that. And I'm guessing that readers will come away with a sense that this is one tough guy. He doesn't act like John Wayne. He doesn't kind of make a show of it. But I think readers will see how tough he is and then how that played out during the election.
He doesn't tweet at 2:30 in the morning either.
Yeah, and jumped out of planes at 2:30 in the morning, as you said.
So it's soldier, Sirius, and the other.
A soldier, a senator, a Sirius Sin, an Epic, Louisiana election.
Okay. So we know senator. Why did y'all choose the title?
Clancy actually came up with the title. We had been searching for something that captures it. Writing a title of a book is crucial, and it's not easy. Just in 2 or 3 or more words that sums it all up. And for much of that race, John Bell Edwards was indeed the long shot. And we tell that story of the long, kind of lonely road, of lonely in the sense of so many people dismissing his chances. And we tell the crucial story of when he met with Mary Landrieu and Karen Carter Peterson, the chair of the Democratic Party, in July of 2015 in Kenner. And he had just returned from Washington, D.C., where he'd had a successful trip in raising some money from the teachers union. And he has this meeting in Kenner with Mary Landrieu and Karen Carter Peterson, and they surprise him by telling him he ought to get out of the race.
Yeah.
That he ought to run for attorney general instead. And we tell the story of how he reacted to that and how it shook his confidence, but how he regained his footing.
Yeah, that's. I remember that you wrote that. Now, also, I think that the article that you wrote last year, I think that was really, really, as you said, you got a lot of feedback. The article dealt with that commercial, the final commercial. I'm assuming.
Yeah, well, it wasn't the final commercial, but it's the one probably people remember in shorthand. It's called Patriots versus Prostitutes.
Okay.
We tell the story of how that came to be, and then the debate within the campaign whether to run that ad, which showed how David Vitter, while he had been on the House floor, he was a member of the House of Representatives at the time, took a call from the D.C. Madam. And then he missed a vote a bit later that day to honor American soldiers who had been killed 10 years earlier in the first Gulf War. And we tell about the reaction or the impact of that ad as well.
And what was the impact? I mean, did it really have that much of an impact?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, it did. And we talk about the other ads. We talk about the Vitter ads, which were very successfully kept down the candidacies of Jay Darden and Scott Angel. We talk about the ads of the third party groups, Gumbo Pack in the runoff, right. The trial lawyers of the Carmouche law firm, their strategy and why they did it, and the impact of their ads that went after Vitter in the primary.
And also, you talk about the post-election when John Bel Edwards was trying to at least pick the Speaker of the House, and that whole debacle, and then his relationship with the trial attorneys.
Right. Yeah. Well, as I said, we start the book at the Political Hall of Fame event in early 2015, and then we back up the story and we talk about the crucial, in retrospect, the crucial 2011 House elections, which became sort of a baptism by fire for John Bel Edwards, and was the first sign that he could run a successful statewide campaign, although very few people recognized it at the time. And I said that just in general, we really want to try to put the readers in the room, make you feel like you're there. We tell it as an unfolding story, as if you don't know what's going to happen next, although, of course, you do.
Sure, absolutely. So the book is published by Lisbon Press, Jim Brown. Am I correct?
Yeah. Jim Brown, the former Secretary of State gubernatorial candidate, insurance commissioner. He published the Edwin Edwards autobiography, and we went to Jim because he could publish a good book for us and could turn it around. And we are selling it ourselves. Jeremy and I are. I want to give our website, which is louisianalongshot.com. So if somebody wants to buy directly from us, and we'll autograph it, louisianalongshot.com. Today, Saturday on Election Day, we actually have a book signing at Barnes & Noble in Metairie from 12 to 2. And tomorrow, Sunday, the day after the election, we're going to be at Martin's Wine Cellar in New Orleans on Baronne Street from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. And James Carville, who wrote the forwards, are going to be there at Martin's Wine Cellar with us from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. And then on Monday, we're going to undertake a book tour around the state. We're going to do book signings in Alexandria and Monroe on Monday. On Tuesday, a book signing at Barnes & Noble in Shreveport. On Wednesday, we're doing an event at the old state capitol in the afternoon. Then we got some book signings at Barnes & Noble's in Baton Rouge as well, the one at LSU, the one at just off College Drive, the other just off Bluebonnet. We're going to be going to St. Francisville for a book signing. We're going to go to Homa on the 20th. We're at Ben Page's, a small bookstore there. So check with your local bookstore if you want to see us, but also you could order just the book directly from us at louisianalongshot.com.
Okay. And with Christmas coming up, it's a great Christmas gift for people like me who definitely would like to read that book. So anybody out there
are you trying to send out a signal to someone to make sure that they buy it for you as a Christmas present?
There it is. My wife out there, can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, actually, I tried.
We've had some people buy 10 copies of the book.
Yeah, I heard.
They want to give it away as Christmas presents. So we definitely encourage that kind of behavior.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I certainly hope to make it to Barnes and Nobles today, if I can, and we will promote this video during the day so people can know exactly where they can go to get the book. And I really congratulate you and Jeremy, two great reporters, really terrific, provide just really super information to everybody in the political community. This is your third book, and I sure am glad that you're back in Louisiana. I can tell you that. Really, it's gotten to know you better in the last 3-4 years, and you really have provided tremendous political input and insight that has been incredibly valuable, just really valuable to everybody. So good luck with your book, and good luck today.
Thank you, Stephen. Thanks so much for having me again.
Okay, take care of yourself. Bye-bye.